Hi, everyone. I'm Ed Baker, and I couldn't be more pleased to be here with you. I'm pleased because, you think that this particular subject is important, as I do. I'm a social worker, a master's level social worker. I'm in my own personal recovery, both from alcoholism and injection drug use for quite a number of years. And this has been my life's work. So welcome, and I hope that I hope that you get a lot out of this brief presentation. We're going to be looking closely at language, the way we communicate to people with substance use disorder, the way we communicate about people with substance use disorder. And we'll be looking at many different levels, not just the language choice itself. So one of the exercises that I think will help you is to first reflect for a moment on the differences between what we'll call stigmatizing language and compassionate language. So the most obvious example of that is the term drug abuser or drug abuse, as opposed to person who uses drugs or person with drug use disorder. A world of difference between the two types of terminology. One is stigmatizing. It engenders feelings of judgment, of a punitive attitude, punishment, the war on drugs. That's a drug abuser. The other category is more compassionate. This is a person who uses drugs. This is a person who has a drug use disorder. So it's a whole person deserving of our respect, a whole person that we're talking about. A slice of the person might be their substance use disorder, but it's not by no means their definition. So the exercise that I'd like you to engage in is to create a sentence or a few sentences from one category using stigmatizing language, and then a similar sentence or group of sentences from the other category using compassionate language. Other terms that you might use, which are much more harsh and I think almost violent, are junkie, worthless junkie, as opposed to that, person with a drug use disorder or person with a severe drug use disorder. So go ahead and do that. Put together some sentences. What's the impact of words? How does it feel to hear a stigmatizing term? How does it feel to hear a compassionate term? What kind of response does it elicit in you? This quote here, this quote is one of my favorite quotes. It resonates incredibly deeply with me, and I hope it resonates deeply with you. And it goes to this idea of skillful speech. So on one level, there's this idea of mindfully choosing language. But on other levels, there's more than just language choice and word choice. And those other levels really pertain to one's inner world. So we choose language, we choose words, but coupled with those words, attached to those words, is our inner worlds. Our inner worlds are being expressed too. So we need to pay attention to that. Besides the words, we need to pay attention to our tone. Are we reflecting compassion that we have inside? What are we reflecting through our choice of words? Are we using words that are chosen to help, to understand, to accept? Or are we using words that are judgmental and punitive? I would even go further than this. I think that we have to consider other elements, more subtle elements, such as eye contact. What are we saying with our eyes? How about, and this next term I love, how about body language? Our languages, our body are actually speaking, body language. How about setting? Are we creating within limits a comfortable setting within which to communicate with someone? How about time allotted? Are we allotting enough time to make the person feel, or to allow the person, to encourage the person to feel comfortable with us and be honest with us? All these things matter, and they matter profoundly. It really is like a holistic approach to communicating. It's not just words. This is another exercise for you to engage in, and this will help you to see, what this inner world is, what this concept of inner world is, and how it relates to language. So if you look at the two bottom boxes, the box on your left represents a person's inner world where they've learned stigma, they've learned inappropriate response. They've been taught over time that people with substance use disorder are criminal, they're less than, they're weak, they're immoral. They've been taught things that are just not true, stigma. But even though those things aren't true, they believe them. It's an inappropriate belief that characterizes inner world. And this very often is matched with stigmatizing language. This is a very, very unfortunate dynamic, and it causes great harm to be perpetuated when it comes to people with substance use disorder. I feel compassion for people who are stuck in this dynamic. I think they've been taught it over decades in America, and we need to help them. We need to help them break free of that. We need to teach them. The second dynamic is a person with an inner world that is characterized by learned stigma, but they're trying. They're trying. Something about using mindful language appeals to them, and they're going with that. They're trying. This is beautiful. This is a stage in the growth process. We need to help people to come along with this, teach them some of the science of addiction, some of the science of recovery, maybe help them to get to know a few people with addiction, a few people in recovery, and they eventually will get to the next stage. This is just another variation. This is people with accurate information. In other words, they have compassion, maybe they're naturally compassionate, but they're still using stigmatizing language. They don't think anything's wrong with it. They just don't know. This is another beautiful stage in a learning process. These people need to learn the right type of language to use. There's an exception to this. The exception is, and these are the two right-hand boxes, somebody with compassion in their heart and accurate information, maybe even lived experience with addiction, that's still using stigmatizing language, and it's okay. Now, how could that possibly be? How could that possibly be okay? Well, if you look to the 12-step groups, if you look toward Alcoholics Anonymous, and basically Narcotics Anonymous, you'll find it all the time. People whose primary purpose is to help each other. They love each other, they're compassionate toward each other, but they're still using what we would consider stigmatizing language. You hear it all the time as people introduce themselves. I'm Joe, I'm an alcoholic, I'm Mary, I'm an addict. People at 12-step meetings are not saying, I'm Joe, I'm a person with severe alcohol use disorder. Some of them are, but for the most part, they're using that language that is part of their heritage. And we leave that alone. We respect that. That is sacred and it works. Over time, there may be an evolution, but that's not what we're trying to change. We wouldn't change that for anything because it works for those people that are part of those groups. This is our goal. This is our goal. It's congruence, that we would have a culture with people who understand people with addiction. They have accurate information. This is a disease. It's not a weakness. It's not some irresponsible choice or criminal personality. It's something that happens to people. It's a human condition. And we would feel compassion for them, like we would feel for anybody else with a disorder that needed help from us. Just compassion. That's the way we are as creatures. We don't leave each other behind. We want to help each other. And that compassion would be matched with mindful language. This is congruence. And make no mistake about it. When you have congruence, people feel that. They understand that. They respond to that. It resonates with them. People with substance use disorder will feel comfortable around that. They sense that it's safe. The same way that they sense that someone with an inner world that's characterized by stigma is kind of like not a very, very safe feeling, even if they're using the right kind of language. So this congruence is something that is very, very desirable, something we need to strive for over time, and something that we need to help other people to understand. In order to achieve congruence, we need to be self-reflective. We need to self-reflect. We need to look inside ourselves. We have to know ourselves. Sometimes this is not easy. Sometimes a deeper truth is uncomfortable. Maybe I do still house stigma. Maybe I do still, have tendencies to be judgmental towards someone with substance use disorder. How do I root that out? Maybe I've been taught that for the past 50 years in America, the war on drugs. It's been in the printed media, it's been on TV, it's been in movies, the word on the street. How can you escape it? How do we root it out? I do believe with Mr. Almas that to root it out, we have to really engage in a practice that's focused on rooting it out. And it cannot be an individual practice. It needs to be interpersonal. Here are some examples, and these are from Peter Jackson, a friend, an addiction psychiatrist, a friend of mine at UVM, who's come up with some small group activities that I'd like you to engage in to help each other, to see each other's inner worlds. In order to do this, it has to be safe. You have to create a safe environment. The way we do this is we have a contract with each other or a compact with each other. We're going to be vulnerable together now. We're going to reveal things about ourselves to each other now that we think maybe we should change. We're going to ask each other questions. We're going to comment on each other's responses. We're not going to ridicule. We're not going to be judgmental. We're going to help each other to face aspects of ourselves that need to be faced. Ask honest and introspective questions, with respect and with humility. Respect others' dignity, but ask those questions. Own your own stereotyped responses. Yes. When I see someone that indicates to me that they're suffering some of the manifestations of the terrible consequences of addiction, I feel a certain way about it. I'm repulsed by it. I'm angry at it. Yes, I have inner reactions that are not appropriate to the person. They have more to do with me than they do to the person. How do I root that out? How do I overcome that and feel compassion for that person? Be a supportive team. Be confident enough to ask questions. This is really the way that we grow. Try to reach an agreement that there will be no judgment and everything will be what we call talk aboutable. And no one will be judged because of what they reveal about themselves. I think that one of the things you'll find, I know that one of the things you'll find is that when we really feel compassion or we help another to experience compassion, that the real winner is us. The real winner is us. Others win as a result, but the real winner is us. We're freed from stigma. We're freed from that nasty, scowling, judgmental approach to people. We're filled with compassion. And as human creatures, this is what's meant to be in our inner worlds. We're meant to be comfortable. We're meant to be accepting. We're meant to be supportive. We're meant to be connected to each other. Stigma disconnects. Compassion connects. Thank you. Thank you.